in a packed Florida courtroom buzzing with tension. An unexpected and controversial exchange unfolded that would soon capture national headlines. Judge Raymond Collister, a seasoned but often sharp-tongued figure known for his unfiltered opinions, presided over what was expected to be a routine pretrial hearing. Across from him stood Pam Bondi, former Florida Attorney General and well-known television legal analyst, who had returned to the spotlight by taking on a high-profile civil liberties case. What began as a disagreement over procedural motions quickly spiraled into a storm of personal animosity. Judge Collister, visibly irked by Bondi's confident demeanor and sharp legal rebuttals, interrupted her mid-sentence. "Miss Bondi," he sneered, with a voice heavy with disdain, "this courtroom is not a talk show set. If you're looking for applause, you should go back to cable news." The room fell silent. Even the court's stenographer hesitated, momentarily stunned. Pam Bondi, always composed but never timid, didn't flinch. She calmly requested to place her objection on the record, but the judge wasn't done. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes, and added, "Your presence here is an insult to the legal profession. You're more of a media clown than an attorney." Gasps echoed in the courtroom. Some attorneys exchanged glances, others sat frozen, unsure whether to look at Bondi or the bench. It was the kind of moment that, in legal circles, could only be described as a professional detonation. Bondi stared at him, expressionless, her jaw tight. She didn't reply, not yet. She simply asked for a recess. What followed next would transform an ordinary court drama into a national scandal. That very evening, Bondi filed an emergency motion to have the judge recused, citing clear judicial bias and misconduct. But she didn't stop there. Over the next 48 hours, Bondi used her deep network of contacts in the legal, political, and media world to investigate the judge's conduct over the years, digging into a pattern of erratic behavior, abusive language, and the most damningly questionable associations that pointed to judicial corruption. While Bondi's legal team compiled the evidence, the media began to pick up the story, initially treating it as courtroom gossip but quickly realizing it was something far more serious. Within a week, transcripts and leaked audio of the courtroom exchange were circulating online. Public outrage swelled not just among Bondi's supporters but among legal professionals who recognized the threat that unchecked judicial power posed to the integrity of the system. Meanwhile, Bondi's motion reached the desk of the State Judicial Oversight Commission, which took immediate notice. Bondi also held a press conference, calmly stating the facts but making it clear she intended to pursue accountability. "Judges are not kings," she said. "They serve justice and not themselves. And no one, no matter how long they've worn the robe, is above the law." The media dubbed it the Bondi Rebellion, and calls for Judge Collister's suspension quickly gained momentum. Then came the real twist. Bondi's team uncovered a series of sealed complaints filed against the judge by previous attorneys, many of whom had remained silent due to fear of retaliation. There were documented incidents where the judge used vulgarities in chambers, belittled junior lawyers, and, in one case, had a clear conflict of interest in a corporate case involving a company where his brother sat on the board. Bondi's legal acumen and relentless strategy began to pay off. The pressure mounted. Judge Collister, once confident in his position and protected by the prestige of his tenure, now found himself under investigation. Rumors surfaced that he had tried to use back channels to discredit Bondi's reputation, allegedly contacting political allies to stir up old controversies. But this time, the old tactics failed. Bondi's clean record and strong support from former colleagues and even political opponents made her bulletproof. The judge was summoned for questioning by the commission, where he reportedly displayed the same arrogance and dismissiveness that had sparked the scandal in the first place. Bondi's evidence was airtight, and her legal brief, over 200 pages long, to read like a prosecutorial indictment. Eventually, the Judicial Commission issued a rare public reprimand, stating that Judge Collister's behavior had brought disrepute to the bench. But Bondi was not satisfied. With the help of a retired federal prosecutor, she filed a separate criminal complaint based on findings of obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and alleged bribery stemming from Collister's prior cases. It was a bold move. Rarely had a sitting judge faced criminal charges initiated by a former attorney general. But this wasn't just about revenge. Bondi was aiming to make a national example. Days later, law enforcement agents served a warrant at the judge's home and office, seizing files and computer equipment. The media frenzy exploded. News vans crowded the front of the courthouse. Interviews with former clerks and attorneys revealed that Callister had long ruled his courtroom with fear, often crossing ethical lines that others were too afraid to challenge. Now that the wall of silence had broken, more voices came forward, painting a picture of a man whose unchecked ego had corrupted the very essence of judicial impartiality. Bondi appeared again on national television, not gloating, but stating firmly, "This is not a personal vendetta. This is about accountability. Every citizen deserves a fair court. If judges cannot be trusted to show basic respect and neutrality, then the system collapses." Under the weight of the growing scandal, Judge Callister was arrested pending indictment. His attorneys, stunned and disorganized, attempted to portray him as a victim of political retaliation. But the evidence Bondi's team had presented told a different story, one of hubris, abuse, and finally, justice. Even longtime legal analysts admitted they had never seen a takedown like it. Courtroom drama had crossed into national reckoning. The aftermath of the Callister scandal continued to ripple through the legal community for months. Judicial review boards in multiple states began auditing their oversight protocols. Legal ethics seminars began using the case as a cautionary tale. Pam Bondi, meanwhile, saw her public image transformed not just as a former attorney general, but now as a defender of legal integrity in the face of unchecked power. She returned to television, not for commentary, but to launch a series on legal reform. Her boldness inspired a new wave of attorneys to speak up against misconduct, especially in cases where judges had previously operated without accountability. Meanwhile, Judge Callister awaited trial, his career in shambles, his reputation irreparably damaged. Bondi's actions had sparked a legal and cultural reckoning. She had not only defended herself in court, as she had held the system accountable in a way few had dared. Critics who once dismissed her as a media figure now called her a guardian of judicial ethics. In a final twist, Bondi was nominated to head a new legal oversight panel proposed in the Florida legislature, charged with reviewing judicial conduct standards across the state. Her transformation from courtroom target to national legal force was complete. And as for the moment that started it all, a cruel, arrogant insult in a courtroom that now stood as a symbol of what happens when power goes unchecked, and what can be achieved when someone refuses to stay silent. The case became a defining moment not just in Bondi's career, but in the broader movement to reform a system that too often protects its own. It was more than a legal battle, it was a stand against the abuse of authority, delivered with strategy, grace, and a fierce commitment to justice.